Hey everyone, and welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Awesome. Today we're diving into something, well, you use it every day, probably without even thinking about it.
Oh, yeah.
Web browsers.
Okay.
But we're going way beyond your usual Chrome and Safari, all right? This is like your cheat sheet to the entire world of browsers, past and present.
Sounds fun.
And our guide for this adventure. Wikipedia's comparison of web browsers page. Get ready for some serious browser trivia. Who knows? Maybe even discover your next favorite way to surf the web.
I gotta say, what always fascinates me about this topic is how much the browser landscape has, shifted over time.
Oh, absolutely.
Remember Netscape Navigator, king of the web back in the late 90s, and now PFT, digital dinosaur?
Gone but not forgotten.
It really shows how quickly things change in tech, you know? Even for those who seem untouchable.
Yeah, no one's safe. Okay, so let's start our exploration with a little trip down memory lane. Anyone out there remember Amaya, AOL Explorer, or Netscape Navigator?
Oh, the good old days.
These browsers were the rock stars of the early internet, but now, well, they've gone the way of the dodo.
True, but, they each had their own quirks and innovations.
Oh, for sure.
Take Amaya, for example. It was developed by the W3C and INRIA, the folks behind, web standards. And get this, you could actually edit web pages right there in the browser.
Wow, a browser and an editor. That's ahead of its time.
Totally. But its last release was back in 2012.
Oh,
Talk about a blast from the past.
really makes you realize how fast things move, huh?
For sure.
Then there's AOL Explorer, so tied to the AOL online service, right?
Yeah.
As the internet became more open, well, that limited its appeal.
A product of its time, for sure.
Totally. And who could forget Netscape Navigator?
The OG?
A true pioneer. Cookies, JavaScript, things we take for granted now, Netscape brought them to the party.
Right. It was a huge part of making the web popular.
Really paved the way. It's amazing how those early browsers, laid the groundwork for everything we use today. So how did we go from those trailblazers to the big players we know now, like Chrome, Firefox, Edge, Safari?
Well, I think a big game changer was the rise of open source software.
Makes sense.
That paved the way for browsers like Firefox built on the Gecko engine.
The engine, that's like the heart of the browser, right?
Exactly. It's what renders web pages, makes them come to life.
I see.
Firefox offered more customization and speed compared to, say, Internet Explorer, which was the default back then.
Oh, yeah, Internet Explorer.
And then, bam, Google Chrome boosts onto the scene and basically takes over the world.
Right, it was like everywhere suddenly.
Chrome, using the Blink engine, made browsing so much faster and simpler.
It's true, it just felt so much smoother.
Became everyone's darling, and now, it's got the biggest slice of the browser market pie.
Domination.
Interestingly enough, both Chrome and the newer versions of Microsoft Edge, they both use the Blink engine now.
Wait, seriously. So Microsoft ditched their own Edged HTML engine.
They did.
Wow. That's a huge shift. Speaking of Chrome, did you know over half of its traffic to Google is handled by this thing called QUIC?
QUIC?
Yeah, not your usual TCP or HTTP one.
Really? I didn't know that.
Pretty wild, right? It's like they're constantly tinkering behind the scenes, figuring out how to make things faster and more secure. But even with these giants dominating, there's a whole universe of lesser-known browsers out there.
Oh, absolutely. Each one catering to its own niche.
And that's where things get really interesting. Tell me more about these hidden gems, the browsers most people haven't even heard of.
Well, there's one making waves, Brave. All about privacy, blocks ads and trackers right out of the box.
Who kidding?
And get this, it even has its own cryptocurrency.
Oh, hold on. Cryptocurrency in a browser.
Called the Basic Attention Token, or BAT. You can actually earn BA just by browsing and seeing privacy-respecting ads.
So you're saying I could have been getting paid to browse this whole time?
It's like they're saying, you should be in control of your data, not the other way around.
I like that. What about some of the other unique browsers?
Well, if you're the type who loves tweaking and customizing everything, you'll love Vivaldi, created by some of the folks who built the original Opera browser.
Oh, wow, the original Opera.
Vivaldi gives you, insane control over your browsing experience. Custom keyboard shortcuts, tab stacking, tiling, you name it.
Sounds dense.
Then there's Pale Moon.
Pale Moon, that sounds kind of mysterious.
It's built on the Goanna engine, a fork of the Gecko engine that powers Firefox.
A fork, so like a modified version.
Exactly. It's all about efficiency, giving users a more traditional browsing experience.
I love how each browser has its own philosophy, its own target audience.
Sure.
This is making me want to try all these different options. But before I go on a browser downloading spree, let's break down some features, see how these browsers stack up. What are some things we should compare?
Hmm. Let's start with accessibility. It's a feature that's often overlooked, but so crucial for making the web usable for everyone. It's amazing how many accessibility features browsers offer that we might not even realize are there.
Oh, yeah, like what?
For someone who's visually impaired, features like spatial navigation and e-links, or even just the ability to disable font smoothing in Pale Moon
Fonts.
can make a huge difference in their browsing experience.
That's true. I never thought about it that way.
It's great that browsers are taking steps to make the web more inclusive.
Absolutely. So we've touched on how browsers differ in their underlying engines. What about support for all the different web technologies out there?
Oh, yeah.
Do some browsers handle those better than others?
Absolutely. One area where you'll see differences is in how well browsers support HTML5 form elements.
HTML5 form elements.
Yeah, those fields you fill out when you're signing up for a website or making a purchase online?
Oh, right, right.
Chrome and Edge, since they both run on Blink, tend to be early adopters of all the latest and greatest web technologies.
So if I'm filling out a form and things are acting glitchy or just seems broken, it could be because my browser isn't playing nice with the technology behind it.
That's definitely a possibility. There could be a lot of reasons why a web form isn't working correctly, but browser compatibility is definitely something to keep in mind.
Good to know.
Oh.
Hey, you also mentioned the WebP image format earlier. What's the big deal about that?
Well, it's Google's creation, and it's designed to compress images more efficiently than the usual JPEG or PNG formats.
Okay.
That means websites can load faster and use less bandwidth, which is a win for everyone. But here's the catch. Not all browsers support WebP.
Oh, really?
Yep.
So if a website is using WebP images and my browser doesn't support it, will I just see like a blank space or broken image icon?
You might see a blank space, or the website might have a fallback image in a different format that will load instead.
Oh.
But it'll probably be lower quality.
I see.
This is a good example of how even something as seemingly simple as an image format can be affected by the browser you're using.
It really underscores how important it is to keep our browsers updated to avoid these compatibility issues and make sure we're getting the best possible experience.
For sure.
Now, what about all those behind-the-scenes protocols that browsers use? We talked a little bit about HTTP2 earlier. What exactly is that, and why should we care?
Oh, HTTP2. It's like a major upgrade to the HTTP protocol that powers the web. Think of it as the language that browsers and web servers use to communicate with each other.
Okay.
HTTP2 was designed to make things faster, more efficient, and more secure.
Gotcha. So if my browser supports HTTP2, does that mean websites will automatically load faster and be safer?
It can definitely help, but it also depends on whether the website itself has adopted HTTP2.
Oh, so it's not just my browser.
More and more sites are making the switch, but it's a gradual process.
I see.
The good news is that popular browsers like Chrome, Firefox, and Edge all support HTTP2.
Got it. So it's a two-way street. Both the browser and the website need to be on board with HTTP2 for us to get the full benefits. Now, you also mentioned something called QUIC earlier, which is supposed to be even faster and more secure than TCP, the traditional internet protocol.
QUIC?
Yeah. Why haven't all browsers jumped on the QUIC bandwagon yet?
QUIC is still relatively new, and it takes time for new technologies to be widely adopted.
Makes sense.
But Chrome and Opera have been strong advocates for QUIC, and Firefox has also implemented it.
It seems like Google is really pushing the boundaries when it comes to browser technology.
They are.
Now, aside from all these technical details, let's talk about some everyday features that make a browser user-friendly. Bookmark management, for example. That's something I use all the time. How do browsers differ in their approach to bookmarks?
Bookmark management is all about organizing your favorite websites so you can easily revisit them. Most modern browsers offer robust bookmarking features with folders, tags, and even the ability to sync your bookmarks across all your devices.
That syncing feature is a lifesaver. It's so convenient to have my bookmarks available no matter what device I'm using.
Absolutely. But some browsers take a slightly different approach to bookmarks. Opera, for example, uses a system called Stash, which is like a more streamlined way of saving web pages for later.
Stash.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's interesting to see how different browsers try to innovate even in something as basic as bookmarking.
They do.
I like that they're not afraid to experiment. Now, what about download management? That can be a real pain point sometimes. What features should we look for in a good browser download manager?
Download managers have gotten a lot more sophisticated over the years. They allow you to pause and resume downloads, schedule downloads for later, and even scan downloaded files for viruses.
That's reassuring. I'm always worried about accidentally downloading something malicious.
Right.
So a good download manager is not just about convenience, but also about security. Now let's talk about another feature that's crucial for security: password management. How do browsers handle keeping our passwords safe?
Most browsers now have built-in password managers that can generate strong, unique passwords for you. You store them securely and autofill them when you visit websites. It's incredibly convenient.
Yeah, I use my browser's password manager all the time. It's so much easier than trying to remember a million different passwords. But are these built-in password managers really safe? I've had some security experts raise concerns.
That's a valid point. Some experts argue that dedicated password management apps like LastPass or 1Password offer a higher level of security and more features. They're designed specifically for password management, whereas the browser's password manager is just one of many features.
Right.
Yeah.
So it might be worth considering a standalone password manager for that extra peace of mind, especially if you're handling sensitive information online.
For sure.
And speaking of security, we can't forget about privacy modes like incognito mode or private browsing. These are supposed to make our browsing more anonymous, right?
That's the general idea. They're designed to prevent your browsing history from being saved on your device. However, it's important to understand that privacy modes don't make you completely invisible online.
So my internet service provider can still see what websites I'm visiting, even if I'm in incognito mode.
That's right. And websites themselves can still track your activity using cookies and other tracking technologies. Privacy modes are a helpful tool, but they're not a foolproof solution for anonymity.
Wow, okay. Online privacy is way more complicated than I thought.
It is for sure.
There's more to it than just incognito mode.
Definitely. And it's an area that's constantly evolving.
Oh, yeah.
As technology changes, new privacy concerns pop up.
Right.
It's a good reminder to stay informed about how our data is being used
For sure.
and what steps we can take to protect it.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
Yeah, it has.
We've covered so much ground,
We have.
from the history of web browsers
The dinosaurs of the web,
to the nuts and bolts of protocols and image formats.
all the behind-the-scenes stuff.
We've even touched on the philosophy behind different browsing experiences.
Like what makes each browser unique.
It's amazing how much thought goes into something that most of us use every single day
I know, right?
without even thinking about it.
It's true.
This deep dive has definitely made me more aware of the choices I make when I choose a browser.
Me too.
It's not just about picking the one with the coolest logo anymore.
It's about finding the right tool for the job.
Exactly. Think about your priorities.
Right.
Is privacy your top concern?
Then Brave might be a good fit.
Do you value speed and efficiency above all else?
Chrome or Edge could be your go-to.
Are you all about customizing your experience down to the last detail?
Vivaldi might be calling your name.
And for those who want a more streamlined and traditional experience,
There's always Pale Moon,
holding its ground with the Goanna engine.
like a little rebellion against the constant changes happening on the web.
I love it. What's so exciting is that the browser landscape is constantly evolving. New browsers are popping up. Old browsers are adding new features.
It never stops.
It's a never-ending cycle of innovation.
That's what keeps things interesting.
So what does all of this mean for us, the everyday internet users?
Well, I think it empowers us to be more informed about the choices we make.
How so?
With so many options out there, we can find the browser that truly reflects our needs and values.
That's a good point.
We're not stuck with whatever came pre-installed on our devices anymore.
It's like we've unlocked a secret level of the internet.
Exactly.
We're not just passive users anymore. We can actively shape our online experience with the browsers we choose.
Here's a final thought for you all. With all these factors in mind, what are the most important criteria for you when choosing a browser? Is it speed, privacy security features, or something else entirely?
What matters most to you?
It's something to think about.
That's a great question. I'll definitely be thinking about that. And hey, maybe this deep dive has inspired you to explore some browsers you've never tried before.
You never know what you might discover.
Be adventurous. Step outside your comfort zone and see what else is out there.
It's a big web out there.
The web is vast and full of possibilities.
And the right browser can be your key to unlocking its full potential.
So go forth and explore.
Happy browsing, everyone.
And may your browsing be ever insightful and enjoyable.